Hey, everybody. I hope you all have had a really good week and have some much deserved rest coming tomorrow and the rest of the weekend. So, on Wednesday, we started talking about the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but we continued to talk about Christian character with it, using the character of Reepicheep, who shows us what the fear of the Lord can do, how it produces courage, compassion, and all other Christian virtues in us. So, check that out in case you missed it. Today, I want to contrast Reepicheep with Eustace. Although it's not really me who's making that contrast, because Lewis gives us that contrast in the book. Reepicheep is a foil for Eustace. Do you guys know what a foil is in literary terms? In literature, a foil is a character that forms a contrast of another character. So the good qualities of one character are highlighted by showing the bad qualities of another character. It's like putting something really white next to something that's kind of dirty white. The clean, pure white looks even whiter, and the dirty white looks even dirtier when they're placed right next to each other. Reepicheep and Eustace are kind of like that. So Lewis begins the book with this line: "There once was a boy named Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it." Now that sets the tone for the character of Eustace. Throughout most of the story, he is a selfish, mean, cowardly, heartless boy who thinks that he knows everything. Yet at the same time, he's also a very self-deceived boy. As the story goes on, Eustace is fearful of everything. He tries to torture Reepicheep by picking up Reepicheep and swinging him around by his tail, although he very quickly regrets that since Reepicheep is a very skilled warrior. He selfishly tries to steal food and water, and he complains about everything, and generally he's just somebody that nobody likes. At one point, he and a few of the others are even captured by slave traders, and those slave traders can't get anybody to buy Eustace. They can't even give him away for free because of how awful he is. Yet while all this is going on, Lewis gives us little bits of Eustace's diary, and that shows us that he thinks that he is selfless, kind, brave, loving to everybody. The contrast between what he thinks he is and what he really is could not be more stark. He is completely self-deceived about who he is. But why is that? Well, again, Psalm 34, I think, is very helpful to us. So if you haven't read it yet, you should have, at least once by now. Go read it again and look at the way David talks in it. He only uses the words me, I, or my 7 times total in the whole psalm. And those are in lines like, I will bless the Lord. My soul makes his boast in the Lord. He, the Lord, delivered me. Yet he uses God's name 16 times in the psalm. You see, the thing is, David is completely focused on God, even though David is the one who's being threatened by King Achish, or Abimelech, which is the general name of the kings of Philistia, like Pharaoh's the general name of kings of Egypt. David is the one who is in danger, yet his focus still isn't even on himself, but on God. That's the key difference between David and Eustace, or Eustace and Reepicheep. Eustace is completely focused on himself throughout the first part of the book, and since he is so focused on himself, he's even able to trick himself into thinking that he's not selfish. It's an amazing thing, but he can do it. And you know what? You and I, not really any better than Eustace. Yet when we focus on Jesus, we find that the Holy Spirit begins to make us more courageous, more kind, humble, compassionate, like David, like Reepicheep. When we focus on ourselves, or really anything else besides Jesus, we find our own sinful hearts becoming more cruel, more selfish, more self-deceived, like Eustace. When we focus, what we focus on determines who we are on the inside. In fact, as the story goes on in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, they make it to an island after a storm, and so they need to rebuild and repair some of the Dawn Treader, the boat that they're using. But that's a lot of work. So on the island, they've got a lot of work to do. Eustace decides he's going to try to sneak away so that he can avoid the work. Now, he justifies that by saying to himself that it's just so terrible that the others would expect him to work as he is so exhausted and tired from the storm. So he goes off. And as he wanders off, he finds a dragon's treasure. The dragon dies in front of him. And so Eustace has this idea. The treasure will make him rich and able to get back at everybody on the boat for how mean he thinks they have been to them, even though they've always been only trying to help him. As he collects the treasure, he falls asleep on it. When he wakes up, he finds that he has been turned into a dragon. And Lewis narrates, sleeping on a dragon's hoard with the greedy dragonous thoughts in his heart, he had become a dragon himself. You see, Eustace has become on the outside what he always was on the inside. At first, he thinks being a dragon would be great because he thinks, again, he can use it to get back at the others. But then he realizes that he actually hates being a dragon. He's stuck as a dragon. He's cut off from all humanity because he's a dragon, and he's going to have to be left behind. So he reveals himself to the others. And once they figure out who he really is, they try to help him. But there's nothing that they can do for him. Now, he sticks with them, and he helps them collect some of the stuff they need to repair the boat and things like that. But at night, he often goes off by himself because he's just depressed. And you know what happens? One person won't let him do that. One person won't let him go off by himself and be depressed. Do you know who that is? It's Reepicheep. Reepicheep. Eustace could not have been more cruel and hateful to Reepicheep the whole time. But Lewis narrates, greatly to his surprise, Reepicheep was his most constant comforter. The noble mouse would creep away from the merry circle at the campfire and sit down at the dragon's head. There, Reepicheep would tell Eustace all sorts of stories of hope about his condition, trying to encourage Eustace. But then even Reepicheep really can't help Eustace. Only one person can, and that's Aslan, which we'll talk about in the next youth group lesson. In the meantime, notice the foil between Reepicheep and Eustace. Eustace's self-focus makes him more self-deceived and more terrible to others. Reepicheep's Aslan focus makes him more and more valiant and kind and compassionate, even to those who are his enemy. So you guys think about that. We'll see you on Sunday.